So excited for you to be joining us today. This is a great opportunity to learn about the CARES Act money that Sarasota County has available to both individuals and businesses. And we are so excited and so honored to be partnering with our sister organization, Visit Sarasota. They're going to be presenting the information today on the CARES Act. I think they'll go through the presentation, and then at the end, there'll be an opportunity. If you do have questions, you can raise your hand. You can go into the chat box and leave a chat, or you can unmute yourself. We probably will have everyone muted who isn't presenting, just so that we can make sure that we don't have any fun distractions during today's webinar. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend and my colleague, President of Visit Sarasota, Virginia Haley.
Oh, thanks, Heather. I appreciate this, and I really appreciate the opportunity to partner with the Chamber and get this word out, particularly if anyone heard about the business assistance program when the county first rolled it out in September. It was a bit of a bear, shall we say, and I had a hard time figuring it out, and I'd been through a lot of sessions, and the county commission heard that critique. They made some really big changes in the program, which we're happy to kind of go through and walk you through some of the areas where we've seen businesses still having a bit of a tough time understanding. You know, one of the best changes is the amount of money you can apply for. It went from $20,000 to $49,999.99. So they doubled the amount of money, which is a plus. It is now a grant, not a reimbursement. Originally, you had to submit all these receipts and show proof of payments. Now you're just attesting, and it's a grant, so much easier there. If you're a nonprofit, they were requiring everyone in your board of directors to supply a social security number and sign all these forms saying you've never been in bankruptcy. Now it's just the executive director or the board chair. So again, much better. And no one has to submit social security numbers. That made everyone very nervous. And you only need to state, and we'll go over this again, if you received PPP or SBA loan or the Sarasota County loan, you don't have to submit all the information from that loan, which again was something that was really tough. Nonprofits are now basically treated the same as businesses, and they don't have to supply their budgets. One of the important things is you had to have been in business since March 1st last year. That's been removed. Now you're still going to have to document a business loss, but that being in business requirement has been removed. And they're moving from requiring all this documentation to you basically attesting, you're swearing that what you're submitting is the truth. So that's much better. And if by any chance anyone on this call had already started an application under the old system, maybe you gave up, go back in, your information is still there, but it's been converted to the new system. So it's definitely worth going back. So I'd like to introduce Allison Jones, who in her real job with Visit Sarasota is our sports manager. And she's going to help walk you through the basics of the program with our tips.
Yes, so good afternoon, everyone now. Virginia kind of went over everything on the important recent changes, so I'll just quickly skip through those. But I'll start with kind of an overview. So as Virginia had mentioned, the CARES Act provides payment from the Coronavirus Relief Fund, and there are costs that were incurred during the period beginning March 1st, 2020 and ending December 30th, 2020. And the provisions of grants are available to small businesses and nonprofits in an amount not to exceed $49,999.99 to help cover the costs of business interruption that may have required closures or due to the COVID-19. So some applicant eligibility criteria. First off, you must have 100 or fewer full-time employees, including the owners, at the time of the application. And if an employee works 20 hours a week, they would be considered half of a full-time employee. Applicants must also show that they've had a negative impact, and we'll go over that a little bit later. And applicants must be a business with a principal location within Sarasota County that's legally operating and licensed within the county and the state of Florida. And another point to touch on is your business has no current unpaid code enforcement liens or violations of any state, federal, or local laws. The next is kind of just going over what some eligible expenses may be. So it could be used for rent, personal PPE, mortgage payments, COVID-19 testing costs, inventory costs for perishable items related to your reopening, any utility payments, which that does include water, sewer, electric, gas, solid waste collection, phone, and internet, social distancing supplies or equipment, marketing related to reopening, employee patron protection, and payroll expenses. So some reasons why you might be ineligible is that a business is a subsidiary or partially owned by a publicly traded company or hedge fund, any entities with open legal actions, and any 501c3 or C6 organization or for-profit business or business owners who are presently involved in any bankruptcy or are planning to file prior to the end of the year. So some steps to success, we've kind of narrowed down 6 steps that we feel are just helpful to getting through this application and receiving the funds as quickly as possible. So the first is really thoroughly reviewing the materials. There's a comprehensive guide for business assistance that's located on the scgov.net/cares website that really has everything you need to know and would want to know, including the FAQ page that's also on that CARES website. And then there are forms that are specific to a for-profit business and then nonprofit businesses. So there's only one of those forms for each. The second step that we just highly recommend is really just taking your time. Your application can be saved and started again in separate sittings. And for some of you who may have applied to previous Sarasota County loan programs, it was more crucial to kind of get your application in as quickly as possible. And this pot of funds is much larger. So rushing through it isn't as crucial at the moment. The third step is really double checking those details, which goes back to taking your time. So all of your records should match your business name, whether it's stated on the state website, your county tax collector, IRS forms, and then also make sure that your estimate of negative impact, which correlates to question C1B on the application on Neighborly, shows an amount that is equal to or exceeds the amount you are applying for.
And if I can mention one thing on the previous page, Allie, do you mind going back one? Just bring up 2 points. This is tripped up. This seems so unfair, but the last bullet point, you have to be every owner of the company must be a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, i.e. green card holder. We've had a couple ones, like I had a gentleman I was working with yesterday, his brother who lives in Italy has only a 10% share of the business, and he's Italian. And so they can't apply. I felt so bad, but that is a very firm rule, and the application won't actually let you go further if that's the case. And then back to the slide that Allie was on, I'll say that that was an area where Visit Sarasota, when we were doing the mock application, almost tripped us up, because you know us as Visit Sarasota, but our actual name is the Sarasota Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I had put it as an ampersand. Well, that would mean it doesn't match. So really, you want to look at the way your name appears on Sunbiz. You want to look at the way your name appears on your tax certificate from the county tax collector. Make sure they all match.
Yes, great points. Thanks,
You would
Virginia.
think you'd know your own company name, but
No. So the next step we have is really understanding your application will be a public record. So the attestation of receiving previous assistance, such as a PPP loan or a Sarasota County loan, will be a public record. And I know Virginia might touch later on this too, but that's just saying that someone can request to see that you have applied and have received previous assistance.
and you know, the county is not publishing, and these aren't something that's, you know, up on a public website. But if someone said they wanted to see these, under state law, they would have to make them available with a public information request.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so then the fifth note is to really stay abreast of the changes, which most of the changes are pretty set in stone now, and we don't really anticipate much more being changed with this program. But we will highlight some of the changes that have occurred over the past few weeks. And the reimbursement aspect, so previously when the program started, it was more of a reimbursement, and now it's a grant that really only requires the attestation for funds that have or will be spent. So uploading your receipts is not necessarily as crucial for this program. However, if they were audited potentially in the future, you would want to have those for your own records, just in case, to show that you did use them for eligible expenses. And then the sixth note is to prepare your documents prior to starting the application. It kind of make things go a little bit smoother on your end. And they also ask the reviewers, if the reviewers ask or prefer to have the documents uploaded via a JPEG or PDF format. And I've listed some free mobile scanner apps here. So Adobe Scan, Genius Scan, Scanner Pro. And the library is also a useful resource if you need help scanning those in. And the last note is if you own one or more businesses in Sarasota County, that each entity must have a unique business name and requires a separate application. And then I'll just move on here to a frequently asked question that we kind of wanted to highlight for you all. So this corresponds to questions C2A and C2B. So if you received a loan from Sarasota County, you are eligible to receive a grant, assuming you're in good standing. In the application, you'll just need to provide a description of the funding source, the amount applied for or received, the purpose and use of the funds, and the amount of funding unused as of the date of your application. And you will always also be required to attest, signing your initials in the certification section of the application, that you're not requesting funding from the grant program for any of the same expenses for which you have already received funding assistance for.
And this is an important point, especially since you're no longer having to send those receipts in. And this is a big point from the federal government that comes with this program. They just want to make sure you're not getting funding to cover the very same thing that's covered by another program. So if you got a PPP and you basically used it for your employees, you saw all those other uses, your lease, your materials. There's just an awful lot of other things that you would just say, this grant will apply to these things, and my PPP did personnel. Mm-hmm. So it's not hard, but you just want to keep those records because, you know, every now and then there are those audits that come down the pike.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then the next section we wanted to touch on is relaying your COVID-19 impact. So the main question, does my business need to demonstrate a loss to qualify? And the answer to that is you don't have to show a loss. However, you must demonstrate a negative financial impact due to COVID. And in the section C, you'll see there's a whole section dedicated to kind of explaining your COVID impact on the application. And the first part is you just describe how COVID has negatively impacted your business. And you can do that within just a couple of sentences, a paragraph. It doesn't have to be a long novel. But if you want to go in detail, there's your section to do that. Your second step is to just provide an estimate and a dollar amount of the negative impact you had due to COVID-19. And again, that's just an estimate. So it doesn't have to be exact, but to the best of your ability. The third point is just show support. So you can do that in one of a few ways. The first is to complete section E, which is a demonstrated negative impact, by filling in the table that they've created with your income and expenses. Or you can upload documentation from your own records, such as a profit and loss statement, your bank account statements, or sales tax statements to demonstrate your negative impact. So they really give you the ability to pick the easiest way for you to show that. And then the fourth is just to certify that you've been negatively impacted prior to submitting your application.
You know, so you could have a business, say a tour company, that, you know, sadly, you know, you laid people off, you took measures, you know, maybe you stopped paying yourself. So your company isn't showing a loss, but obviously you've had a huge reduction in potential income. So those are the things that you would want to demonstrate to show this is, you know, this is what I had last year. This is what I had, you know, do the comparable P&Ls. Or sales tax is really easy. You know, if you show that you were remitting, you know, $25,000 in sales tax last year and $2,000 this year, boom, upload it as PDF it as one document and then upload it.
Can I ask a question regarding that? This is Mike Long with FETCOR.
Yes.
In regards to that question, that statement, Virginia, for businesses that may have only started up in, say, December of last year, and they don't have any comparable sales to really compare to, any recommendations there from your standpoint? Because there really isn't a P&L from March, April, May that you can compare to March, April, May of 2020. So any guidance there or thoughts?
I would look, you know, would you be able to show the business that you had in January, February, in the first 2 months of business compared to what it looked like in subsequent months?
Yes.
Did you have demonstrated cancellations? So you had, you know, all these things lined up, March, April, May, and you can show that they were all the cancellations, provide that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, anything like that would work. And again, when you're uploading, combine them into one document. And these, you know, these are people that the county has pulled from all over to review these. So when I'm uploading in that section, I would probably do a cover letter. Again, saying my business started in December. I am providing you my January, February to show this. And I'm providing you this to show how my bookings, or, you know, whatever it was, dropped dramatically. Make it easy for them reviewing it.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. So the next section we're going to go into is the nonprofit information and then other special cases. So for nonprofits, what's kind of changed is who now must execute the citizenship, criminal history, and bankruptcy certification form for my nonprofit. And now it's changed to only the nonprofit director or executive director must fill in and personally execute the form. So they would be the only person who needs to certify that. And if they need to transfer over the authority to someone else to fill out the application for them, there's also a question where you can upload an authorization form, and that authorization form, proof of signatory authority, at the bottom here, it kind of jumped on to the last point. It can really just be a simple letter on letterhead with a wet signature of a person authorizing the transfer of authority is sufficient. So just a few sentences on that letterhead and then their signature is fine. And then the next special case is for those applicants who are sole proprietors and do not have a SunBiz. You can just upload a Word document with an explanation such as, I use my social security number as a tax ID and I do not have this ... because that field is mandatory on the application. So you have to have something inserted there or you won't be able to submit your final application.
And there's a number of things like that attestation with the previous slide for both. There's one version for nonprofits and there's one version for profits. Those are the documents that you have to download and sign in real ink. I love that term, wet signature.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to download it and then scan it back in and upload it. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot put an electronic signature on it.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And then some updates here too. So the application link I put up in bold, it's scgov.net/cares. And then there's a funding dashboard, which we'll show you guys, that gives a real-time view of the application submitted, the assistance provided, and the assistance paid. Just kind of a tip for best application experience, we highly recommend using a desktop browser and using Google Chrome or Edge. And I believe the tax collector,
It's back up.
it's back
Yay,
up.
it is back
I was
up.
going to say, it shouldn't still be down. But this is, previously it was down last week, but you guys don't have to worry about this. If you do need the any information, you can just go to their website. Or if you're not finding something, they are very responsive via their email and phone as well.
Well, and this has surprised a lot of people because a lot of businesses and nonprofits didn't realize that they need to register with the Sarasota County Tax Collector. So there's been a lot of, and it's a requirement. You have to show that.
Mm-hmm.
But what's great is the tax collector is retroactively registering you.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you email them, oh, there's our help phone, hold on. If you go to the tax collector, to the website, or especially if you call them, tell them that you're doing this for your CARES application and they'll get you all set up.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're a nonprofit, what they do is they have an exemption so you don't pay, but make sure you talk to them. They know the importance of getting you all lined up for your application.
Yes. And then here's just some assistance information, but prior to going on that, I'll just show you guys the dashboard for funding. So you all know where to go to see that, and I'll show you the neighborly application.
I mean, they were in September with the original application. I think they were maybe getting through about $100,000 worth of grants a week.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're getting close to $1 million a day.
Yes.
So
you just
they've
go to them
really improved.
Yes, and scroll down to where it says the dashboard, and then it pulls up.
What is a realistic timeline from providing your application and being submitted and reviewed to then the amount funds being dispersed? Realistically.
Well, I mean, I think you want to give it, I would give it 2 to 3 weeks. Some seem to sail through more easily.
Mm-hmm.
I think those tend to be ones where people have professional CPAs helping them with their, with their application. Because I have heard of people getting them in as few as, 7 business days.
Mm-hmm.
You do get a series of acknowledgements. So they'll send you an acknowledgement that they've received your application. Then it goes to a review team to make sure it looks like everything's in place. Then it goes to a second review team to kind of really look at the financial documents you provided. And at that point, it's sort of given a conditional approval. And then it goes to the Sarasota County Clerk of Courts, and they do basically a quick pre-audit. That's why you see this difference in 21 million has been approved, but 13 million has been paid. That's where it's gone to the Clerk of Courts, and they're doing that final pre-audit before they actually cut the check.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's denied by the county, let me go back. In those initial reviews, what we've been observing is you'll hear from the reviewers saying, you know, what you uploaded wasn't the right thing, or you need to provide, usually they're pretty good about telling you exactly what you need to do to go back in and adjust it, because their goal is to get you this money. And so there can be, that's why we suggest really take your time, make sure you're getting the things in the right way. Because it just, once you get it in and submitted, anytime it has to go back and forth, it slows it down. And then, you know, if it is denied, they tell you specifically why. And, you know, sometimes you can go back and fix it, but on some of those hard things, like everyone having to be a US citizen who's an owner, you just really can't get around that.
And then another note as well that we heard today in a meeting was if you have any employees who had reduced hours or were furloughed, to tell them about the individual assistance program, because they can apply to that. If you're applying, not necessarily it has to go hand in hand, but your business can apply and they can apply individually, or you can apply individually for assistance. And typically the individual assistance just requires a letter from the employer about their reduced hours or about them being furloughed due to COVID.
So that's a really nice thing you can do for your employees, is make sure they know about it, or your former employees.
And then I'll quickly move over to the Neighborly application to just show.
This is what it looks like.
Yes.
And once you have filled in these forms, you see on the column on the left, you can always click it and go to those sections if you've decided you need to make an edit. You just scroll down to the bottom of the page and reopen. Allie, we're getting so good at doing this. And you close, and then you can go ahead and edit whatever you want, and then complete and continue. So it's a pretty user-friendly form. Wherever it has you uploading forms, just remember to upload it as one form. It can only take one at a time. And I will say, scroll back up to the top of that page, Allie, if you don't mind. A couple of people today, this has fooled them. Slowly scroll down again. And you see this stop. And a lot of people are stopping, and they don't realize to keep going is then where you do all the uploading. So just, I'd say with this Neighborly program, always make sure you're scrolling all the way down on these pages.
Yes, and then you also cannot click on the certification section until you've completed sections A through E. So if you're trying to skip ahead, that's one you can't skip ahead to.
So, questions?
I have a question. I've had a lot of people asking me, well, do I have to wait? Should I wait until December until I've had all my expenses, or should I do it now? I think that was more because it was a reimbursement, but you can still get the grant if you're saying I got to pay December's rent, I got to pay November's rent. Will they still give you that amount of money?
Yes, through December 15th is the period of time. Exactly. And yes, I would say, because it's not panic time. You don't have to have it in today, but I would definitely, I'd try to get my application in by the end of next week.
I have a question. If you received one of the PPP forgivable loans, and say it goes through, October here, I think that's what we're doing, for the application. And we're small. We're just a small nonprofit here, Literacy Council of Sarasota. What I was hearing, we could actually apply for a grant to cover payroll after that period, say for payroll for like November through December 15th.
Yes.
Okay.
And you saw all those other uses too.
Well, right. Okay. And so that's not, it's not like your award is reduced by the amount. They just want to make sure that you're not double dipping.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Okay.
So any of these other things, you know, if you have a lease, you know, rent, utilities.
Right. Okay.
I will say the inventory cost, notice that it says perishable. But I think we had one, didn't we have one, Ally, where there was a business, they had to buy a laptop so an employee could work from home, and they told us, yes, that's eligible because they had to purchase it because of the need to shut down their office.
Yes.
So you would just want to make sure in your records, since you're not turning that in as an actual receipt, you just want to hold that in your records.
Yes.
What else?
So Virginia,
Now, I'm not sure if Heather's still on the line or not, but you saw at the end, Visit Sarasota has volunteered to try to be a resource for you. The one thing we can't do, I wish we could, we can't go into the back end of the system. So if you have a problem where, I mean, we can walk you through if you're having a problem uploading, we can probably figure out what you're doing wrong. But if you're trying to see more about the status, we have to send you to the county. We can't do that. But any other question, we can pretty much help with. And that's our CARES Act dedicated phone line just ringing.
In
So.
action. Perfect.
Yes, in action. It's been ringing a lot today. I can understand why Kelly wanted to give it to me for a few days. What other questions do we have? And the chamber, the Sarasota Chamber, is also available to help you and answer questions. And also, if you're on this call, you know, please spread the word. I mean, you know, if you're lucky enough to have a barber or a hairdresser or a lawn guy, or it's really important that this word get out. I mean, it seems to be picking up steam, but we definitely want to help people.
Virginia.
No, the employees did not have to live in Sarasota, as long as their place of employment was in Sarasota. But we know a lot of our employees live all over the area. Good question.
And then your phone that was ringing right now, is that the one that's up here that ends in 0090?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now I have a question too, because we deal with, you know, lots of, you know, lower income households that have been disproportionately impacted, you know, from employment to, you know, other services and whatnot. And I'd heard something through the grapevine. Is this also that opportunity where is it $5,000 per
Yes.
household? Okay, and is that the individual grant piece of it?
That's the individual grant piece of it.
Okay, and is it
And when you go on the county site, you can either click individual or business.
okay? And then aren't there other? I also heard, I know the grapevine, right? See if it's all that information is true. Is it true too that at the libraries that they have navigators that will help people with the individual applications?
Yes, with the individual, not with the business.
Right. Okay.
So we're kind of the chamber, Visit Sarasota, we're sort of the business nonprofit navigators. And at the libraries, they're the individual. So yes, with a lot of your clients, that would be great information to share with them.
Right. And I saw that you saw the dashboard there. It looked like only about, well, less than half had actually been approved, right? I mean, as far as it looked like some had been paid out.
Well, yeah, so those numbers you saw, the larger number, the 21 million, is what's basically been approved, and now it's just waiting for that final step for the check to be cut.
Right. And is that 21 million? That's a combined business and individual assistance?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can see, since the business is eligible for so much more money, it is a lot more money in there.
Right,
And
okay,
in case you're wondering, that 5 million on the top line of business assistance, that was a special allocation for the top cultural arts groups.
okay.
As you can imagine, the opera and the Oslo, and
They've been
they
hit hard,
really got,
right? Okay,
so that's sort of a whole separate thing. So that's not tracked in here.
right, okay.
Any other questions or?
No, that's good. Thank you for this, because as I had looked at it before, I've been sort of tracking this, but it's like, oh gosh, it's going to be hard for us. We have to actually demonstrate, maybe through our financials, a loss, but that's only part of the picture.
Right, right. You have to just show the impact.
Right. Okay.
So, so your revenues this year compared to last year, your P&L, that would
Right.
be great. And you see where on the county website, they even have a place to click here to view the ambassador hours for the individuals.
Oh, nice. Okay.
There it goes.
Yeah, so they're scattered throughout the county.
And then for the business side, I know with Visit Sarasota, we have that dedicated phone number. We have a dedicated email. So, and we have a system with the county that if we can't answer it, we have kind of a fast track that goes to the county. So they've been getting us the answers really in a couple hours this week. So any other, we want someone to stump Allie.
It's easy to do.
We're learning as we
For
go.
the individual, but they have to be a resident of Sarasota County for the individual one.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, just as the business needs to be a Sarasota business, the individual has to be a resident of the county, anywhere within the county.
Mhm.
All right, well, if there are no other questions, we're going to let everybody go back and get those applications done.
Right.
Thank you very much. Very, very helpful.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is
no.
very helpful. Thank you.
No problem. And thank you so much to to our friends at the Sarasota Chamber for helping us co-host this. And if anyone, would like us to do a presentation to a group, or again, just want some one-on-one time, let us know. We'll be happy to do it. So with that, we'll all say goodbye.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Virginia.